In this training video, we are going to discuss how to use MusicPad to create tablature. In other words, tablature being things that look like this or this. In this case, this is guitar tablature. Here's some drum tablature. Here's some more guitar tablature. And of course, there are many other types of tablature. And I think probably that's the best place to start. I know many of you know what tablature is, but I'm sure there are a few people that don't. So let's look at a basic definition, and that is that tablature, or tab as it's often called, is a form of music notation that indicates instrument fingering rather than musical pitches. In other words, if you go down to conventional music notation or sheet music, these indicate pitches. They don't indicate fingerings, whereas tablature has more to do with fingerings. So that's the main difference between the two. Tablature is common for fretted stringed instruments such as guitar, but it is also found and used in many other instrument types, including harmonica, drums, trumpet, and even keyboard or piano, plus a large number of other things that are sort of less well known. Since there is such a diversity of types of tablature, we have tried to create MusicPad in such a way that it's flexible for you. So regardless of the type of instrument that you're playing, you should be able to use the tablature section of MusicPad to create whatever tabs you need and be able to customize them. Before we get started and actually create some tablature, I think the first step for us is to understand the layout of the work area. Now, if you've watched one of the other videos, you perhaps already know this, but it would be a good review regardless. And if you haven't watched the other videos, this is something you'll need to understand. I'd suggest that you think of this work area here in white as a sheet of paper on your computer on which you will write notes and rests and sharps and flats and tablature and strings and all these other types of things that you're going to be writing and saving within MusicPad. Also note, the paper has a margin. In fact, there are two margins. The external margin here is meant to indicate the edge of the paper. It's in a darker black color. And then inward from that is a second lighter colored gray margin. And this second margin, this gray margin, is meant to indicate the margins for printing. So if you ever intend to print what it is that you create or save within MusicPad, you should be cognizant of this fact and try to create it within this rectangular area of the gray line. Also note that at the very bottom of the work area there is a toolbar that you can use to add additional sheets of paper or to delete sheets of paper that are on your screen. Right now, this is a work area that I've been practicing on and using for videos. I have 3 sheets of paper here. I could certainly delete one or more of them, or I could insert additional ones, and that's what this toolbar at the bottom is used for. So with that brief overview of the work area, let's go ahead and get started with creating some tabs. There are really 2 ways to work with tabs in MusicPad. One is to copy and paste existing tabs into MusicPad, and the second is to create them from scratch. We're going to start with a lesson on how to create them from scratch. And the first thing that you do is you go up to this button here, which is the tab creation button. You click it with your mouse, come down here. Now I'm going to left click, and that basically indicates the starting position. Then I'm going to drag it, and as you can see, we start with a minimum of 2. And if we drag down, it will insert a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th. So if you're doing guitar, 6-string guitar, there you go. If you're doing 4-string bass, if you're doing a dobro, some of the dobros are 3 strings, and of course harmonica, drums, they all have different types of tabs that may require different line positions. So in this case, let's just assume we're going to create guitar tabs, because I know that's probably the most popular type of tab amongst our users. So 3, 4, 5, 6 strings. I'm going to drag it all the way across, and I'm going to click a second time to position it there. And now we have the building block to begin to place the actual alphanumerics on each of these different strings to indicate finger positioning so we can create tabs. Okay, once we have the 6 strings of the guitar represented here. The next step is to begin putting the fingering positions on these strings. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. A couple of ways. We're going to show you, I think, 3 different approaches here, and you choose what works best for you. But primarily you're going to be using this button right here, which when you click on it opens a text block window here, and if you double click it once it's open, you can edit all of this. And let's say that the first set of characters we're going to type in here are 17 B for band. So we type that in, and then we can go ahead and grab this and resize it, and then grab a hold of it and drag it up here to this top string, and now you've entered the fingering position for this first note. And likewise, we can do this the second time for the next one, which is 17. So we're resizing this now, putting the 17 up here. So as you can see, this is the first of 3 ways, but it's a fairly tedious or laborious way, because you've got to create these fingering locations one at a time. So another way in which you might want to do this, let me go ahead and finish this first line, assuming we're doing it all the same way, which is using this text block here. So finishing the first measure, if you will, we're going to insert a 15. Okay, and then I'm going to use this button here to create a line of an indeterminate length. Essentially, this can be used for a measure marker then. There we have it. Okay, so that's the first way, and it is a bit of a tedious or laborious way. A second way, using this same thing here for the text block, would be, rather than to create one of these at a time, is to create everything for the whole measure at a time. So for instance, we might type in 14H for hammer on, and then put a space or two, 15P, another space, 14, a couple more spaces, and then a 15. Okay, so we have that. Let's resize it. There we go. Now we can move that entire thing up to this top line. And now, instead of doing these notes one at a time, you've done 1, 2, 3, 4 notes at a time. And then for this particular measure, we still need one more fingering position here on this second string, which would be 17. I'm working obviously from a tab here that I'm recreating for you. That's how I know what I'm going to put here. So that would create then the second measure, and now we've created a second measure. And this is the second way then in which you might do this, and that is to create as many of the fingering positions on one line in the same text box, meaning this text block box that appears when you click this particular button. Now, a third way to do this essentially invokes this same box, but it does it sort of in a quick insert format that I think you're going to find the most useful, and that's why I've saved it until last. So I'm going to delete this, and what you do is you go to your keyboard and you push on the cap locks, and you'll see it pops up this message that says the quick key press text insert is now on. As you press keys on the keyboard, they will be inserted onto the page. So let's watch how you do this. So wherever you position your mouse is where these keystrokes are going to be inserted. So I'm going to do this next measure here. I'm going to start with 14H. Whoops, typed it wrong. 14H. So you can see I've got 14H there. I click. I still have it wrong. Right click in it to edit it. It's 14H. There we go. So I've inserted that, put my mouse right back up here, and start typing again. 15P. Put my mouse and start typing again. 14. So all 3 of those fingering positions are on the top line. Then I've got some fingering positions on this second line, and we're going to do those next. 17, and then 16, and then 17, and then I have one last one up here on the top string, which is 14. So there you go. I've created the third measure using sort of a third alternative, and again, I think you'll find that to be the easiest way to do this. Now, you know, this is new, so I would suggest you play with it, find out what works best for you, but those are the three ways. So the first is, just to review, using this text box, typing in these one at a time. The second is to use this text box again and then type in everything for a particular string for a measure, put it in here, and then place it up there, and then open a second of these text block boxes and do the second line, which would be the 17. And then the third is to not use this button at all, but to use this caps lock mode, which I'm going to delete this again, which again throws up this message which tells you you're in this caps lock mode, which puts you into quick key press, and then just basically to hold your mouse up here, and as you hold your mouse and start to type, it will insert whatever it is that you type, and that may be, and I think is, the quickest way to do this. So that is going to conclude at least this little piece of how you create tablature. Now, two other things you may want to do with tablature before we leave this section. And first of all, I'm going to do this, and if you have looked at a previous one, you'll remember what that does is it highlights everything. I'm going to slide this over here just a little bit. Then I'm going to deselect it. I'm going to go up to the text box that we create by clicking this T button here, which is the simple text box, and I'm going to type in here the order of the strings so we can put labels on each of these strings, and most of you know this, but it would be E, B, G, D, A, E. And then I'm also going to change the orientation, because right now these are going to be placed horizontally and that doesn't do me a lot of good. I'm going to place these in a vertical format. And I'm also going to maybe decrease the size slightly to 11. There we go. Place them there. That to me looks like something we should probably edit a little bit. I'm going to maybe go down to 10, and then I'm going to put a space between each of these till I find what works. And of course, once I find what works, once I know this, then the next time I do it, I can do it the same way. There we go. So I've edited this. I'm going to slide this up just a little bit by nudging it with my arrow keys. And now we've got a pretty good synchronization here between the labels for each of the strings as I've indicated them here. The last thing then, again, using this this simple text box, I might want to insert the name of a song, and then I might want to change the font size here to say 20. There we go. Place that at the top, and now I've got a label. One other thing I'd like to briefly discuss or talk about is this third button here on the tabs toolbar, which is what we call a symbols key. And for most of you, I presume you know what we mean by that, but let's just open up the guitar one just as an example. The symbols key is, you know, like a key on a map or an atlas or something that essentially gives you the definition of what the symbols stand for. So in the case of guitar tablature, an H equals a hammer on, a P equals a pull off, a B is equal to a bend, string up, etc., etc. So some of you may have all of this in your head and you don't even need to refer to these things, and that's fine if that's the case. In other situations, though, you may not know it, and these are just some helpful references so you can open up and take a look at them. And then the other thing that you can do with these, and I would strongly suggest that you do this, is that from our experience out there, there are some slight differences to how people write and interpret tablature. So for some people, A B may be a bend string up, but they may also use the B to bend the string down. So I say that only to encourage you to customize this. So if you find the keys that we have in here don't suit your needs or aren't exactly to your understanding, go ahead and edit them, make whatever changes you need to, and once you've made those changes, just make certain that you go to the File button here in this text window that opens and click Save, and whatever changes you make will be saved, and therefore you've sort of customized the key that you're using to meet your needs and your understanding and your definition. So that's number one. Number two, we have preloaded this with 5 different tablature keys. There are obviously many more out there: bass guitar, banjo, a dobro, lots of other things. So if the one that you play, the instrument that you reference, isn't in here, then I would again encourage you to create your own, and you simply do that by selecting Create New, putting in whatever the title is. Dobro I'm going to put in as an example, and then whatever text you copy in here. And by the way, there are 2 ways to do that. Either you can copy and paste the text directly into this box for the symbols key, or if you need to, you can simply type it by using your keyboard and type it in here. Once you've completed the symbols key, you click OK. It gives you a message that it's created it, and then here you go. Here's dobro. And of course, if you would like to edit it after you've created it, you simply open it up, edit it in whatever way you need to, and when you're done, select save to save it, and then you'll save whatever edits you've made. The only other thing I might just quickly add is, if you've created some tablature that you're going to be sharing or sending to someone else, you might find it helpful for them, especially if you copy your symbols key right onto this sheet of paper here that it's appearing on your screen. So if you wanted to do that, for example, you select this text block text area, and let's just go back up to the guitar key, open it up. So now what we do is I'm going to copy all of these, Control C as a keyboard shortcut, close it, go back in here and Control V, and essentially we have now copied that symbols key onto this music pad sheet of paper. And again, if you were going to print this as an example, you could print this, and right along with the tablature that you created, there would be the symbols key that you use, so as they're reading the tablature and trying to interpret it or understand it, they know what you meant. So another way in which you might use tablature within MusicPad, rather than create your own, is that you could go to the internet or any other location where you can find tabs, and you could copy those tabs and paste them into MusicPad. Now, a couple of things about that. First of all, most tabs are ASCII text. ASCII meaning the normal keyboard text that you see on your keyboard. If you have tabs that are in some other format, you're not going to be able to use those within MusicPad. Specifically, I'm thinking mostly of tablature that might be made of image files. Those things are not going to be something that you can copy and paste in here. But let me give you an example of how we might do this. First of all, we created this in the last lesson. I'm going to go ahead and just try to delete it here. I've deleted it, so now we've got some space to work with. So let's go to the internet for a second. I previously had done a search, and I am on one of the many tab sites out there. This is Dust in the Wind by Kansas, and this is the intro riff. So this is ASCII text, dashes and numbers, and you can simply copy this by using your mouse, holding down with the left mouse button and dragging both to the right as well as downward. And now I've copied that, or I haven't copied it, but I've highlighted it. I'm going to do a Control C, which is a keyboard shortcut for copying. So I have that. And now let's go back to MusicPad. So here we are. Let's go ahead and click the button here to open the text block window. We've done that. I'm going to just stretch this a little bit to make it bigger. going to delete this, and then I'm going to do a Control V, which again is the keyboard shortcut for pasting into this window. There I go, pasted it, and as you can see, these lines of text are wrapping at this point. So what we're going to have to do is stretch this window and make it a little bigger, and there we go. You now have that intro riff for Dust in the Wind. And if you wanted to resize this, for example, if it's too small or too big, you can go down here and select a different font size and resize it, as I've just done. You just bring it up here. So there we go. There we have this intro to Dust in the Wind. Now, a couple of things about this. First of all, Tablature from the internet is notoriously bad. So you might want to look around a bit before you just copy and paste something in here, because you might not be very happy with what you have once you start to look at it and compare it to the music. The second thing is that even if it's not perfect, it's at least a starting place. So if 90% of it's right, as you listen to it and as you start to try to tab it out, it may be quicker for you to start with something like this and then edit the mistakes and correct them, rather than to build the tab from scratch. But you can certainly do either, and you should do whichever approach seems to be better to you, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. The other thing that you may want to do here is just to give whatever you're creating a label. Dust in the Wind intro riff. And again, I'm going to change the size of this to maybe 22, and let's bold it as well. There we go. If you have any questions, you can certainly reach us at the help desk, but I think this is enough to give you a good start.